This is Eric Hicken, here to showcase the rig created for my Numbat character as part of a Film Noir project. I'd just like to open up and show some of the controls and abilities and things that I've built into this rig, showcase its capabilities. So to get started, we'll go down to the leg. There are a few different control methods that I've implemented in this leg. It's driven by a result chain, which is itself controlled by Ik and Fk chains of different abilities. For example, here is the control, which controls the different modes that it's in. This is the Fk control, so for manual rotational control by the animator, which is driven all the way down to the foot, as you can see. That's for very precise controls. It's very good for moving just the leg if you don't want anything else to move, or to very specifically control exactly where its position will be. If we switch that back to Ik, it works how you would expect it to. It's driven by the single foot control. You can place it and leave it wherever you want, and then animate the rest of the body with the foot staying in place. Now, in addition to that, there are a number of secondary controls which are very useful. For example, I've got a pull vector constraint on the knee, which allows you to point it to wherever you prefer, or some animators prefer a more numerical approach to pointing the knee, so I've also included a secondary solution where you can simply use this control in the attributes to numerically set where you'd like the knee to twist to. Additionally, as a stretchy character, it may be useful to have an Ik control over the knee as well, so that is also included. If you'd like to set the knee somewhere specific and leave it there, you have that ability. You'll also notice as I lift the leg up that I've weighted and added Blendshapes to the leg so that it deforms fairly nicely. And of course the blend shape is controlled by the location of the Ik control, so you don't have to worry about it as you're animating. You just go and the deformation handles itself. Moving on to the foot controls, I've got a number of options built in through the attributes. One, of course, is the traditional roll. As you walk, you can adjust the roll of the foot to make walk cycles extremely easy. You can also tilt the foot in its entirety, or if you like to just lean the ankle, do that as well without moving the toe. You can spin it around the toe, which I've got locators put in around the foot, which helps it locate exactly where you're tilting. And then I've got a wiggle control for just the toe if you'd like to do that. Going up to the arm, the controls are very similar. I have an Ik control, also driven with the blend shape here, so you don't have to worry about deformation very much. It handles itself. We have the ability to snap the elbow here as well. And to add additional control here, I've added an Fk chain controlling just the upper arm if you'd like to place the elbow somewhere and then use just the wrist or just the elbow onwards for control, such as using a mouse or a keyboard or drawing. Anything you'd like to leave your elbow in one position but work with the forearm itself. I'll go ahead and turn that back off. And we'll switch over to Ik mode using the settings control, very similar to the ankle. This is almost identical to leg. Fk controls that you can set specifically on your own for very fine control. And then one fun thing, since the shoulder is the one joint on the human body that animators have trouble with the gimbal lock on, I've included a fourth control, a fourth gimbal, which controls the same node as the upper arm control, but this makes it impossible to completely gimbal lock your model. If you're animating, run into gimbal lock, then you have that fourth control to fix it without having your animation jump or move awkwardly mid-scene. Very useful because it completely removes a problem that's very common in animation and a very big problem. Moving to the body, I have controls, you'll notice that I've got an Ik Spline set up for the spine, so it moves fairly realistically. As you move it around, the back will bend and twist with the location of these two controls of the upper and lower body. And then I left this intentionally in FK and IK mode for the two arms so you can see how they move as well a little bit differently. If I'd like to leave this IK here and move the body, then it's not going to be influenced by that. I can move freely while leaving this hand doing whatever it's doing in the animation. I have built-in translate shoulder controls for additional emphasis in your scene, which reacts slightly differently to IK and FK like the body. And then with the spine, I've also added an FK chain which controls this Ik Spline, which is nice in case you'd like to do upper or lower body or lower back bending for a little bit more precise controls. The next, actually very similar, I have an Ik Spline set up for the neck, which you can see here. That is nice because it handles the twist very realistically as a normal neck would. And like the back, I have an FK chain set up to control that Ik Spline. So these two controls for the head and neck give you control over exactly where you'd like to move that. And of course, one of the problems in working with both IK and FK arms and legs is that you can't control exactly where the other mode's going to end up if you move one, which means you have to reposition the arm to where the other one is mid-animation if you'd like to switch modes, which is often necessary based on what you're animating. So to make this easier on the animator, I've also created a script here based on a tutorial which I'll link below in the comments. Oop, looks like I've got an autosave. It's causing problems here. There we go. And the nice thing about this script is it'll take the location of the IK or FK arm, and then you can switch to the other mode just like this. So I'll be using the left arm. Looks like I've got a little, there we go, a little problem on my other arm, but this allows you to switch the arm mode and then set it specifically. I was acting so into it because I've got the stretch turned on, which I'll talk about in a moment. But you can switch very quickly from IK to FK and maintain the exact position of that arm as you do so. So you don't have to worry about it while you're animating, you just switch it and go. As I mentioned just a moment ago, I've also got stretch control set up for all of the arms, neck, and body for more cartoonish animation, but stretch isn't always appropriate, so I've also created controls on both the limbs and globally, which allows you to turn off that stretching and work with just the default length of each of those limbs, arms, body, and neck. Of course, this rig is also set up to translate, scale, and rotate globally without any changes in proportions. So you can scale it up and use the rig just as before without creating or running into any problems at all, which makes it much easier to work with other models and other scenes. Finally, I've also built in some fairly simple facial controls here, which are controlled here in visibility in the attributes of the head control. There's a fairly fun suite of controls here. For example, I have eye controls, which control the lid, and of course the bottom as well. Very simple to use, very quick. And they're controlled by a joint chain which is limited by the shape and size of the eye. so the lids will never go into the eye, nor will they ever leave it, no matter where you put the controls individually. Then for more precise control, I've also added in secondary controls to get the exact shape of the eye you'd like. Very precisely. The iris is also controllable. If you'd like to size the pupil here, size the iris a little bit. And then the eyes are controlled with aim controls, so you can control exactly what your character is looking at all times. Moving on to the eyebrows, I have fairly simple translational controls here, which will allow you to shape the brow and both the ridge of the brow and the eyebrow itself to give your character a little bit of expression. The mouth controls are very similar to the eye controls. They're driven by a number of joints that I have hidden here, but which allow you to move either 4 controls here for shaping, or you can turn on the additional 4 controls for more precise emotion. Inside the mouse, you'll notice I have tongue controls as well. Not usually necessary, but nice to have just in case. Finally, I also have some controls for the nose here and cheeks, allowing you to tweak those if necessary to get the exact expression you're going for. That's not quite all of the features that I built into the rig, but that covers the main ones. With IK, FK, everything control to do anything you'd like to do. This is Eric Hicken, and this rig was based on a number of different tutorials, different scripts, different styles that I've noticed around the internet. Some I've just mimicked what professionals do, other I followed tutorials to get the exact result, which I'll try to do my best to credit in the notes below the video.